Let's speak to Xavier Abu Eid, the political scientist, a former communications advisor to the Palestinian Liberation Organization. Xavier joining us from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Thank you so much for your time, Xavier. Just this issue, first of all, before we talk about what Israel is doing with the aid organization saying it's weaponizing aid. The army chief approving the new plan for attacking Gaza. What is it going to do to the north of the enclave?
Thank you, Adnan. I think clearly what we are witnessing now is that the Israeli army, which is one of the institutions that those who still believe in a so-called Israeli democracy believe is one of the strong institutions in the country, they have been politicized by the right-wing government of Benjamin Netanyahu. I think Benjamin Netanyahu has succeeded in scaring out the generals of the Israeli army in order to push them into his direction, a direction that can only lead not just to more destruction, but to an end goal, which will be the ethnic cleansing of at least the northern parts of Gaza.
And we've also talked about this, you and I, before, Xavier. In fact, I believe it was last week when we talked about Donald Trump's idea to resettle Palestinians out of Gaza. Benjamin Netanyahu is now saying that he's had conversations with various countries about resettlements. Is this the fear? Is the fear that this is actually going to happen? Because many people have been saying, whatever anybody says, that is the last thing that will happen, because Palestinians will never leave their land.
Adnan, I think we should put things in context. The risk of ethnic cleansing is there. Even here in the occupied West Bank, we have all over 50,000 people that have been forcibly displaced since October 2023. And it's clear that the end goal that Israel is looking for in Gaza is to have a massive forced displacement of Palestinians that they refer to as voluntary immigration, that they do so after they have destroyed basically all means for people to survive, not even just to live in Gaza. But if it works in Gaza, the next term will be here in the occupied West Bank, where they are already preparing a number of colonial settler projects that can only succeed if Palestinians are replaced. It's a dynamics of displacement replacement. Now, Israel and the US may talk to several countries. We know they talk to a number of them. I personally don't think they are going to succeed in trying to convince any country to take Palestinians in a context of ethnic cleansing. However, what's serious and it's real, and people should take this very seriously, is the fact that there are ethnic cleansing plans against Palestinians in Gaza by Israel, endorsed or supported by the Trump administration.
Xavier, you began talking to us by mentioning Israeli propaganda. Is it also Israeli propaganda? How has the world become convinced about Israel's side of the story regarding aid? It says its new procedures are all to stop aid being looted. The United Nations says there is no evidence at all of Hamas looting aid. It seems as if it is armed gangs who are working with the Israeli army that are looting the aid. How is the world believing Israel's story and not believing the UN?
Adnan, it's not only just about the UN. There is a document by USA, it's published by New York Times, that says exactly the same as the UN is saying, that it's not Hamas the main responsible for looting aid. But I may disagree a bit with the assessment. I think actually very few people are believing the Israeli side of the story. The problem, though, and here I agree with you, Adnan, is that there are several governments that are still trying to believe, making efforts to believe the Israeli side. However, as we have witnessed over the past few days, even though we may refer to it as too little, too late, there are several countries that are taking their own individual steps, including even some of the closest allies of Israel, like Germany and Italy, because they are no longer convinced that what Israel is doing is just. And most importantly, Adnan, I don't think Israel can convince anyone that they have any end goal in Gaza more than ethnic cleansing.
Okay, you mentioned Italy, and the EU is a really important player here because Kaja Kallas, their foreign policy chief, says that yes, we will impose sanctions on Israel if it doesn't do more to allow aid into Gaza. They said that at least a month ago, if not longer. Is the issue here that you have countries in a bloc of 27 countries who are disagreeing with their foreign policy chief? So essentially, you can't have a deal between 27 countries imposing sanctions.
Then I think the combination of Ursula von der Leyen and Kaja Kallas has been a disaster for Palestine. And we should not forget that Ursula von der Leyen is one of the leaders that are blamed for giving a green light to this genocide back in October 2023. Now, with regards to Mrs. Callas, she has been not just very weak with regard to Palestine, she has been trying to do diplomatic gymnastics in order to prevent any sort of sanctions or concrete measures. She even announced a so-called agreement with Israel in order to allow for more humanitarian aid. And it was right after she announced this that we started to hear more and more about cases of malnutrition among mainly children in Gaza. Basically, she was either fooled by the Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar, or it was just an attempt for Israel to buy some more time in order to not be sanctioned by the European Union. That's why there are several European countries, starting by Spain that took the lead, Ireland and Slovenia, but also even Germany now, that are taking their own steps with regard to the ongoing genocide.
Xavier Abu Eid, thank you so much indeed.
Thank you, Adnan. A pleasure.